For the past 10 years, I've been thinking of how to be a more productive person. And this has led me to having habits that have stuck around for 10 years. And here's how you can make a habit last. The first and the most important one is identity. You need to identify with this habit. If you want to sleep 8 hours a day, you need to tell yourself as much as you can daily repetition. I am someone who does everything they can to sleep 8 hours a day. You can take it a step further and say, I am the person who sleeps 8 hours a day. Or you could say, I am someone who does everything possible to sleep 8 hours a day. What's going to happen is in your daily life, you're going to start seeing opportunities for you to get more sleep. And it's like that with any habits. You want to pick one. You want to be kind to yourself and just pick one habit and just decide, I am the kind of person, no matter what, does all they can to sleep 8 hours a day. You want to repeat that for a very long time. We're not talking weeks, we're talking months, maybe even years. Tell yourself that daily on a consistent basis, and you'll start seeing opportunities for you to become this person. So, identity is the first step. The second step is to start small. You're not going to become this super person overnight or this person who consistently sticks to this habit overnight. You need to start small. Start as small as you possibly can. So, the kind of person who sleeps 8 hours a day probably has a good space to sleep in. So you might think about reorganizing your space so it's optimized for sleep. So that's just an example. But whatever habits you want to last, you need to think to yourself, what is the tiniest thing that you can do to be closer to this habit? So things compound magically over time. So don't worry if it sounds completely ridiculous, but you need to start super small on whatever you want to do to get to this habit. If you want to read more books a year, don't just run out to the store and buy 20 books and say you're going to read all 20 this year. You want to start. I'm the kind of person who reads 20 books a year. And that means you have a good place to read, you have a good schedule, a time set apart to read. You want to start with maybe 1 page a day or half a page a day and be super consistent with that. You'll be surprised who you transform to in a year if you focus on this micro step and the identity part. Final step is to track your habits. So some people like to use habit trackers, some people like to use pen and paper. But what I've found is the most important thing with tracking the habit is if you don't do it a certain day, you need to write down why it didn't work. So you can have this internal tracker, which some people recommend you do, some people recommend you don't. I think it's fine to have an internal tracker. But if you realize, oh wow, yesterday I didn't get 8 hours of sleep, you don't just put that under the carpet, because then you're likely to not get 8 hours of sleep again. You just want to think about it in a calm, factual way. What made me not get 8 hours of sleep, and how can I remove this? That is the part of the identity. That's what someone who gets 8 hours of sleep would do. So you need to track either you consistently doing this habit, or if you find that you go a day without doing this habit, you want to track why this happened. So that's my 3 easy steps for you to make a habit last over time. I do have some habits that I'm lucky enough to have been doing for the past 10 years. I hope you got something from this video. I'm building a productivity app, link in the description below.